Hey, Anthony, thank you so much for joining me. I'm wanting to have this series of conversations around what I call ways of working. What are some of the mindsets, the techniques, the approaches that we can all be using to do better in our learning experience design work? And one of the things that really struck me ever since I picked up your book, Training Reinforcement, because this is one of those, every once in a while you run into one of those books and those concepts and you're thinking, this makes all the difference. This is it, right? And so that's why I'm really excited to be talking to you today. So here's my opening question. If I build a really, really great learning experience, why don't people change their behavior? What am I missing?
Well, thanks, Megan. That's a question I'm answering for the last 20 years because a good training doesn't mean that they change their behavior. And please understand me correct, because a reinforcement is not a replacement of your training. The reinforcement program is an add-on to your training. So we need your great and fantastic training, but what happens after the learner comes back in the job, back in the office? We all know they are busy, they think just after the training, yes, I'm gonna do it. This is great, fantastic. But then the reality kicks in and they start to forget, the forgetting curve, they start to get busy. And within a couple of months, they just remember it was a great training. But guess what? The training only creates impact when they change behavior. So what we do with the reinforcement is actually an add-on to your training program and actually a kind of continuation of your training and help them apply what they have learned during your training. And that is why you need reinforcement.
What I love about your approach, right, is that it's exactly what the instructional designer is doing in the process of building great training. They're then just taking that forward into the reinforcement mode. But your approach is so structured, right? We hear about spaced repetition and all these things, but that doesn't come with the structure that your 7 principles method brings with it. And I love that. We could talk forever. I would love, we have talked forever, right? At conferences. I've known you for years now. But one of the things that I really resonated with was verbs. And we all know I'm a grammar geek, right? But aside from the beautiful grammar, and the thing about verbs is that it helps you create such a targeted program. So we use Kathy Moore's action mapping process to create the objectives for our learning experiences that are incredibly action focused, because we can't use what's in your head directly on the job. We want you to do something with what's in your head. Yeah. So help me make the leap then to how verbs are so important in designing your reinforcement program.
Yeah, if I look at all the training programs that I have observed and analyzed in the last 20 years, I know that you recognize it, that a lot of those training goals start with, after my training, you're able to delegate better. After the training, you're able to sell better or whatever. But you're able to doesn't mean nothing. What behavior is that? It's just that the training companies are, hey, this is my responsibility. What happens after the training, it's up to the leaders in our organization. So I'm so glad that you are so engaged with the verbs, because behavior change start with a very strong verb. And that causes a lot of thinking process. What exactly do you want to see? What kind of behavior do you like to see that creates impact in your organization? And when I challenge people with, give me the verb, and once we have a verb, now we start to talk about, okay, but how do you measure that? Because in the behavior change, what happens in the behavior change, all the measurements at the start and at the end, and then we see the difference. But what you want to do in the reinforcement program is a continuous measurement and helping the leaders with the change process of their team members. So you want to measure all the things during their process of changing. You don't want to stop first at the beginning and at the end and then say, well, they changed, or they changed 60% or whatever. You want to guide that process from the reinforcement. And the verb helps you to determine not only the behavior change objectives, but also to have a very solid set of measurements. So the verb is key to build a series of messages. Remember that, I'll give you an example. A reinforcement program is a series of messages. If you use the verb, do you recognize a computer? Then the series of messages will be different than you say, do you use a computer? Recognize and use means different media, different questions, so the verb has a lot of impact on that series of messages. So the hard thinking of a reinforcement program starts with the verb, and I'm glad that you and your team already use very strong verbs in the training, but that is not what everybody do.
Well, and pulling it together and making it consistent through the reinforcement program then makes the entire thing hold together. And we're doing that with one of our clients working with you right now, and it's just magic how all that comes together. Mm-hmm. So Anthonie, thank you so much for joining me. This is Anthonie Wurth for a few minutes of our ways of working, and have a great rest of your day.
Good. Thank you. Bye.